not too big a period of time. But what happened after that, reasonably soon after that, is that this advantage of technology led to a period of colonization. Most of the world outside Europe, including most of Asia, got colonized. And for the next 2 centuries, you saw a change happening in the world in terms of the leaders of the global economy pulling further and further ahead, and the rest of the world, including Asia, being left very far behind. By the middle of the 20th century, soon after the Second World War, because the colonies started to get independent and Asia started to become independent. Pakistan and India in 1947, Sri Lanka, China 48, 49, and then others followed. And within half a century of that independence, you started seeing a very, very interesting dynamic begin to emerge as these countries took control of their destiny, some better than others. And the world as we saw it started to change right in front of our eyes. That's a phenomenon which, in my opinion, is unstoppable, and it has been only maybe 20 years or so that we have seen the emergence of this modern phenomenon of Asia emerging. And I think over the next half a century at least, you're going to continue to see the momentum of this phenomenon. The problems that you're seeing right now around the developed countries and the opportunities that you're seeing in emerging countries, and particularly those in Asia, in my opinion, reflect a basic fundamental which cannot be denied. The world today competes, I guess to a large extent has always competed, on the basis of the knowledge, skills and innovation of the citizens of different regions. As the knowledge gap between the developed world and the emerging markets begins to narrow, as it is doing right now, it is going to create opportunities on the one hand and pressures on the other, which are going to be unstoppable. When you're standing in the middle of all this, you're able to, or you at least attempt to relate it to particular governmental policies, the approach that politicians are taking, and so on and so forth. And people would generally tend to blame the leaders for the problems that they're seeing, or credit them for the opportunities which are arising. But in my humble opinion, what you're seeing in Portugal and Greece and Spain, to a very large extent in European countries like the US, UK, etc., is the result of this shrinking of the knowledge gap that I was talking about. If you've got people who have got relatively similar skills, who are willing to perform a particular service or produce a certain goods at a fraction of the labor cost that is being charged by the competing economy, the result is going to be obvious. And that's what we are seeing. And that is also, it's creating disruptions across economies, but it's also creating challenges and fissures within economies. If you look at the discourse in the US, for example, right now, and my sons are studying in UK, and I hear the same stories from them about the discussion which is going on in UK, is a feeling that the rich have shaped the policies in their own favor, and therefore the rich are getting richer and richer. Well, something staggering like the US middle class has not seen real income growth over the last more than 2 decades, I believe. But there is nothing sinister about it. It's because the top end of the knowledge curve in the developed countries is still something which is not replicated in emerging markets, not even in Asia. And therefore the returns on that knowledge are still significant, and they continue to flourish. In fact, now that knowledge, the application of that knowledge is not just applied within their own markets, but the increasing global market and the consumers of Asia are willing to pay for and can afford to pay for that knowledge and its fruits. And therefore the returns on the higher end of that knowledge are absolutely phenomenal. But the middle class, the blue collar worker, who is now competing for jobs which can and are increasingly being done in emerging markets and most of all in Asia, is feeling the pressure of that competition. Now what we need to do, what we need to see in Asia is to understand these dynamics, what is causing these opportunities to rise, why some of the Asian countries, many of the Asian countries have benefited immensely from it. And those who have still not fully benefited from it can begin to do so. And those who have already done so continue to focus on that fundamental and therefore continue to go forward in their development.
Be able to talk some sense to you. I looked up the dictionary to see what exactly power means. There are many definitions, but I picked some which I thought would perhaps be useful in the context of your summit. And the word power is said to be the ability or capacity to perform or act effectively, exercise control or have influence. And it also says strength or force exerted or capable of being exerted. And another very nice word, might. All these are words associated with power. So I thought I will use the term perform or act effectively to be the thread as far as my presentation to you is concerned, or to exercise control or to have influence, which perhaps is again useful for us to reflect on when we look at the macro picture as to where we would like to take ourselves. This is a business summit, so I guess all of us here are connected to business. And in business, you also need to ensure that you perform or act effectively. Many people act, many people perform, but if you want to be effective, maybe you have to get a few things right if you really want to ensure that your effectiveness shows. Also, we talk about flexibility, again an important term. In today's world, where there are so many changes that take place so quickly, flexibility is essential. The ability to move, the ability to change course, the ability to modify, the ability to adopt are all essential ingredients if you want to be in a position to move forward. And in the last 6 years,